Hey, everybody. It is Friday, February 7th, headed into Super Bowl weekend. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Moshe Nunu.
And I'm Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines, so you don't have to. I don't know how many of you have filled out a Super Bowl squares. It is one way to... who gambles on the Super Bowl? Nobody gambles on the Super Bowl, but you can fill out those squares, and then they fill out, potential scores for each quarter afterwards, like 1 through or 0 through 9 on each side. You pick a square in advance, and then hope that each quarter ends with the team having a point total that equals that number. I'm not explaining it great, but Super Bowl
I can't even believe you're trying to explain it, actually.
It's better explained in person with anyway, I filled out a couple squares. We'll see what I get. We'll see if I get a 3 or a 7. Those are always the, better numbers in football, along with a 0.
We should set as a Mo News goal for 2026 to do an office squares thing. That's where I usually do it.
Well, if there's enough of us. There's a lot of squares to fill out. So we would need to, well, actually, we're at Industrious now here in Manhattan. It's like a shared office workspace. So we'd have to invite some of our neighbors into it if we wanted to really fill out the squares. But I'm still a part of one that with former CBS colleagues from back in the day.
Okay, Moshe, so good luck to you and to everybody else who participated as well.
Yes, and we're going to have much more on this podcast on the Super Bowl in a little bit.
Yeah, we were hoping to lead the show with it. Unfortunately, other news got in the way.
What? Washington got in the way again? Shocker.
I said to Moshe at our morning meeting, is there any way that we could possibly lead the podcast with the Super Bowl? And for a while, it was looking like we were going to, but nope, no such
luck. Let's hope on Monday that the game is good enough on Sunday night that it'll make sense to lead with it on Monday morning. You know what? We can make that call right now, Jill. We're going to do that.
It's less about the Super Bowl being a great game and more about what else is going to happen in this crazy world.
Well, we sort of led this podcast with the Super Bowl. We've now spent about 2 minutes on it. So there you have it. You're welcome, everybody.
Fair point. Okay, let's get to the headlines. Some very big news out of Washington, D.C. A judge has halted President Trump's government worker buyout plan for at least a couple of days. Meanwhile, the White House is preparing an order to cut thousands of federal health workers. And Moshe, as we just mentioned, it is Super Bowl weekend. New Orleans is preparing for Super Bowl 59. We have everything you need to know about the game, the halftime show, and the commercials. Secretary of State Marco Rubio planning his first Middle East trip in a few days, where he is going and what is on the agenda.
Yeah, the president's Gaza plan still getting a lot of attention.
Some new info about what may have gone wrong during that Midair collision between an American Airlines flight and a Blackhawk helicopter. OpenAI considering 16 states for data center campuses as part of Donald Trump's Stargate project. And an asteroid's chances of hitting Earth in 2032 just got higher, but experts say don't panic.
Yeah, don't worry about this one. We'll explain.
I feel like there's a lot of other things to worry about, but I also think that the chances are higher than I'm comfortable with.
2% feels higher than you would want, right?
Yeah. And it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend, what we are watching, reading, and eating.
Jill, it's Super Bowl weekend. You can eat whatever you want this weekend. It's the law.
I feel like this one kind of wrote itself between what we're watching and eating anyway.
You know what we're doing this weekend. We're doing what everyone else is doing.
Okay, let's start, though, with that major court decision on Thursday that blocks the Trump administration from moving forward with its plan to downsize the federal workforce, at least for now. U.S. District Judge George O'Toole Jr. temporarily blocking the Trump administration from enforcing a midnight deferred resignation deadline. The Trump administration and Elon Musk's Doge had been offering the roughly 2 million federal workers pay through September if they opt to leave. That's nearly all of them, but there were still a lot of questions and exceptions leading to some mass confusion. So for now, the judge froze the buyout offers until a hearing on Monday. I should mention the judge, who was appointed by President Clinton, said this freeze was just, quote, table setting for the hearing and not an indication of how he's eventually going to rule. This case was brought by the unions that represent about 800,000 of the federal employees. They said the buyouts were arbitrary and unlawful. The Trump administration claims tens of thousands of workers have already accepted the offers.
Yeah, they're saying about 60,000 or so have accepted it as of Thursday morning. We've been hearing from a number of you who are either taking the deal, not taking the deal, heard people are taking the deal. A lot of the folks looking at the deal, they were going to retire anyway in the next year or two and said, I might as well take the deal right now, especially since it came with a threat, meaning if you don't take the deal, we might cut your job anyway, and you're not going to get that 8 months free pay where you get to take a vacation, take another job, and get paid anyway. So 60,000 or so, what is that? That's about 3% of the federal workforce. The goal for Trump, Elon Musk and company was somewhere between 5 and 10% of the workforce, up to 200,000 plus employees that they were hoping would take the deal here. Now, interestingly, the White House reacted to the judge freezing the plan positively. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, saying, we're grateful to the judge for extending the deadline so more federal workers who refuse to show up to the office can take the administration up on this generous once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A reminder, that's also been a big thing here for Trump and Elon, which is get back to the office. Now, some of these people have never been in the office. Some of these people have been remote workers for decades, way before COVID. Some of them living thousands of miles away, and they might be able to do their work electronically. And that's been an issue here. In some cases, some departments and agencies don't have enough office space to have everyone work in the office. It was never intended to be, everyone at the office, especially certain departments where you don't need to be there in person. At least that's the perception. Nonetheless, this is where we're at. This is frozen. And there has been a lot of confusion that is sort of underlying here when it comes to the lawsuits over at the IRS. A number of employees who are like, I'll take this deal. They were told, actually, you're going to work through May because we need you. It's tax season. And so you're not going to get 8 months off and free starting on Thursday. We're going to make you work through May. Over at the Department of Education, where there's been a lot of questions about the future of that department, employees there were told by leadership that anyone who took the buyout and did not get the severance would not be able to fight back, and that they could change the deal at any moment. So a lot of people in the government saying, I don't know if I trust this deal. There have also been Democrats in Congress who've said, this is not a sure thing because you also need funding to pay these people out. And so one of the legal questions that will come up here at this hearing or another hearing is going to be what's called the Anti-Deficiency Act. It requires that all spending must be appropriated by Congress. Remember, the way the Constitution is written is that all funding must be approved by Congress. And so this huge promise of all these people getting this buyout, where is that money going to come from? Against the backdrop as well, and as we reminded you yesterday, the current budget is set to expire in March. So if that money runs out or the government shuts down, what happens? Will you get paid out? So a lot of questions there. That's going to be part of that hearing on Monday. There are multiple lawsuits here because, again, this has never been attempted before. So this buyout, frozen for now. We'll have an update for you on Monday or probably more like Tuesday's podcast.
Also, the White House is reportedly working on an executive order to fire thousands of Department of Health and Human Services workers. Under the order, the FDA, the CDC, and other health agencies would have to cut a certain percentage of their employees. HHS employs more than 80,000 people. It includes the National Institutes of Health and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, in addition to the FDA and the CDC.
This is something we've heard from RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is set to be the next Health and Human Services Secretary. He got through committee this week. The full Senate's going to hold a vote on him next week. Right now, it looks like he's going to get through, but one of the things that he's been promising is major cuts to a number of those organizations. The question, of course, is which parts of those organizations will be impacted here? And it comes as there's a lot of major issues we're tracking right now, right? We're tracing the bird flu outbreak, cancer research, all the various things the CDC, the FDA, all these health agencies do. There have been questions about the lackluster staffing already at the FDA, leading to issues that led to that shortage in baby formula. Inspections, the FDA, all these agencies do a lot of things. So if you're going to cut a lot of staff there, where are these cuts going to be? And what is that going to mean to the safety of food, medical research, all the variety of things that they do? Those will be among the things that we will be asking about in the coming weeks here.
Now to the other big news this weekend, Super Bowl 59. Kickoff is at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. It's going to be broadcast on Fox and also some streaming platforms.
Dun, 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 dun. You've seen the memes, or if you've heard the memes, Jill, of like all the various NFL theme songs. I mean, they're all so dramatic. I have to say, the Fox one, it sort of takes the cake, I think.
It hits.
It's hard.
So the Kansas City Chiefs going for an unprecedented third consecutive title as they take on the Philadelphia Eagles. They'll be playing at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. Last year's Super Bowl set an all-time record with over 127 million viewers. This year could potentially do even better. Yeah,
I mean, that's already about 40% of America watching. I still don't know what the other half of America is doing, but those will be the numbers. They'll, have to track the digital numbers since people are, streaming it in so many ways these days. But the Chiefs have been going now for a while. They've won the last two. They're going for the third here. You also have the Eagles. This is a repeat of the game from 2 years ago where the Chiefs just beat the Eagles by a very slim margin. The Eagles last won there back in 2018. So these two teams familiar to many Americans.
Yeah, the Chiefs, as I mentioned, going for their third win in a row, led by quarterback Patrick Mahomes and tight end Travis Kelce. So that, of course, means Taylor Swift very likely will be in attendance, which draws a whole different...
I mean, if she doesn't show up, that's the story of the Super Bowl. Yeah. Very likely she will be there. I think even if she had like 104 degree fever and the flu, I think she shows up to the game, right? She flew from Japan last year to from her tour to make the game. This year, she has no excuse.
Moshe, we are a news podcast, okay? I don't know for sure that she's 100% going to be there, so I have to cage it.
You're right. Thank you for caging it for the people. I just want to preview our Monday edition. We'll lead with, so this game happened last night, but the big story people are asking is, where was Taylor?
If Taylor's not there, then yes, that is the story. But again, if she is there, it draws a whole different audience of young girls that normally may not be so interested in football. Something else to watch for. Tom Brady will make his Super Bowl announcing debut. He's going to be calling the game with Fox Sports broadcaster Kevin Burkhardt. Brady won 7 Super Bowls as a player.
Yeah, he's no stranger to the Super Bowl. He's just usually on the field.
And then there are the famous faces in the crowd for the first time ever. That will include the sitting president of the United States, Donald Trump, expected to be there. The Secret Service says it's had staff on the ground for days preparing for his visit, which comes a little bit more than a month after that deadly truck attack on Bourbon Street near the venue. Trump will also be part of Fox's pre-game show. So this had been a long-running tradition since 2004, when then President George W. Bush did an interview with CBS Sports. That was a lighter 4-minute interview talking mostly about football. But then during the Obama administration, these interviews got a little bit newsier. Journalists started to do them, so they got more political. The tradition continued until Donald Trump refused to sit down with NBC and Lester Holt back in 2018. And then President Joe Biden, he continued the tradition for his first 2 years in office, but then he declined for his last 2 years.
Right. That was one of the questions we asked last year is why is Biden skipping the gimme free Super Bowl interview in an election year? And they said, the White House at the time said, Biden just wants people to enjoy the game. We would, obviously a few months later that debate happened. So there are a lot of questions about whether he just wasn't up to it. Nonetheless, this presidential interview, as you mentioned, goes back to Bush as the networks rotate the game. So NBC 1 year has the rights, Fox has the rights, CBS has the rights. I obviously was at CBS for a number of years. So I was involved in the preparation. For the CBS Super Bowl interview, when the CBS has the Super Bowl, they would get the presidential interview, trying to get access. I remember back in 2013, we were trying to get access to the kitchen, the White House kitchen with the Obamas as they prepped for their Super Bowl. And so there were a couple years there where we had the CBS Super Bowl and had the presidential interview. You talk, some serious things. You talk about the game. So that's back here.
Wait, so you wanted access to the kitchen to see what they were going to be eating during the game?
We want to do a whole segment ahead of the Super Bowl with like the First Lady, with Michelle, prepping like, okay, what do the Obamas eat at their Super Bowl
you guys
party?
thought she was like prepping the guac.
Yeah, well, whether she does it or not in real life, we want to do a segment of like her and the White House chef, and like for the Obama private residence Super Bowl party, like what's on the menu. I was working in morning television. That's like
I'd watch.
That's amazing, right? Like you can watch the Obama interview, and it's like, what do you think about this and Benghazi and whatever that we were talking about at the time, and we'll do that. But like coming up, behind the scenes with the Obamas, like, are they pretzel people, chip people? I don't know. It was 10 years ago now. Exactly. So anyway, the presidential interview is back. It sounds like this one's going to just be at Mar-a-Lago. It's a sit-down, Fox's Brett Baer with Trump pre-tape. So they'll roll that out at 3 p.m. Eastern time as part of the pregame show on Sunday. All right, so that's the pregame show. Obviously, there's the game. Then there's the halftime show, which is what many people are watching for or tuned to some years. Kendrick Lamar, who won big at the Grammys on Sunday, he is the halftime headliner. We already know that he will be joined by SZA. We expect that he will perform Not Like Us, which is his attack on Drake. So I think most people, I don't know what the betting line is on Drake showing up at the halftime show, but I would say that's pretty unlikely. But will there be other surprise musical guests as part of the halftime performance? We shall see. Some have said maybe Taylor Swift comes out there because it turns out that she and Kendrick Lamar, were told by a member of our team, Sari, collaborated as part of the remix of Bad Blood in the past. So we'll see if maybe she comes out there, or she just wants to stay in the booth cheering on Travis and the Chiefs.
I give Taylor Swift performing at the Super Bowl halftime show as a special guest.
Yeah.
I think that's less likely than the asteroid that's slated to hit the Earth in 2032.
Which, okay, less than 2%.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get to that.
But I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am wrong about Taylor Swift. But I hope I am wrong, because that would be a lot of fun.
As far as before the game, John Batiste will be singing the national anthem. Trombone Shorty, a fellow New Orleans musician, will be part of the performance of America the Beautiful. And then, of course, there's the commercials, which these days, Jill, they're pretty much all on YouTube at this point. If you search Super Bowl commercials and you just want to watch them easily on your computer or phone, given that if you're for a Super Bowl party, getting everyone to shut up around you so you can hear the commercials is incredibly difficult. So if you want to be prepped on the commercials, they're pretty much all out there at this time. One that's already gotten a lot of attention is the Hellman's mayonnaise ad. They are recreating the classic scene from When Harry Met Sally in the diner with Katz's Deli, with Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan all these years later. So that's out there. That's already been getting a lot of attention. You also have a Haagen-Dazs ad, which they've titled Not So Fast, Not So Furious, which includes Vin Diesel, Ludacris, and company. Carl's Jr. is bringing back its bikini and burger ad. You'll have TikTok influencer Alex Earl be starring in a commercial for a new Hangover burger. I think that's for Carl's Jr. there. And Dunkin' is back with Dunkings, including Ben Affleck, Casey Affleck, and Jeremy Strong. Which honestly, besides the Hellman's ad, I haven't watched any of them so far. So I might try to check out a few before the game on Sunday.
I might be an easy target, but I thought that Dunkin's ad with Ben Affleck was so funny a few years. Was that last year or the year before? I remember laughing out loud at it.
Jill, listen, for the amount that they cost this year, by the way, $8 million for a 30-second ad. They better make it good.
All right. We mentioned Taylor Swift will most definitely be cheering on her boyfriend. Barring
an asteroid.
Barring. But there are some other celebs that will likely be there as well. Paul Rudd and Jason Sudeikis, devoted fans of the Chiefs. They attend their regular games, so they're expected to be there. And then on the other end, you've got Bradley Cooper, who is a huge Eagles fan.
Yes, so we'll be, I'm sure people will be counting that. How many times will they show the president? How many times will they show the various celebrities? How many times will they show Taylor? We'll be watching that. I haven't checked out all the prop bets bets, but I imagine there might be a bet around that. Prop bets are these bets that you can make. I mean, obviously, you can bet on the Super Bowl itself. Right now, it looks like the Chiefs are 1-point favorites. But then you can bet on things like how many seconds the Star Spangled Banner. It'll take John Batiste to sing the national anthem. Will he play the melodica, his instrument, for the national anthem? Will Taylor be shown during the national anthem? I guess that's a bet you can make. What will the coin flip be? Will it be heads or tails? Which iconic New Orleans cuisine will be seen during the broadcast? Will it be gumbo, jambalaya, beignets, or po' boys? And you can bet on all this stuff. And so those are among the various Vegas, what they call prop bets when it comes to the Super Bowl. And then I'll leave you with one more fun fact here. Three-peat. So the phrase three-peat, the Chiefs are going for a three-peat. If they can win 3 in a row and achieve the three-peat, they'll be the first NFL team to do it, though it has been done in other sports. It turns out the phrase three-peat is owned by Pat Riley. Some of you might be familiar. Pat Riley is a famous NBA coach who's won a number of championships. He coached the Lakers. He coached the Miami Heat. Well, he actually filed for the trademark for the word three-peat back when he was a Lakers coach in the late 80s as they had just won their second title. He trademarked the word three-peat. Now, if you remember NBA history, they would not achieve the three-peat that following year. They would fall to the Detroit Pistons. Now, several years later, my Chicago Bulls would achieve a three-peat, actually twice. 2 three-peats the Bulls got. The Yankees have also done a three-peat. Well, Riley actually owns 6 trademarks related to the term three-peat. So anyone who wants to use it, from apparel to jewelry to backpacks to beverages, you got to ask Pat and pay him money. It turns out that Pat Riley and the Chiefs do have an agreement here on the word three-peat, so they will be allowed to use the word three-peat. We don't have an agreement. I've said the word three-peat like 10 times by now, so hopefully Pat doesn't come after us. He has said, though, that the money that he makes on the word three-peat, he does donate to a charity.
Prove it. As I was just sort of rolling my eyes in my head that he had a patent on the word three-peat and then trademark. That he had a trademark on the word three-peat, but you just put it over the edge.
All right. Predictions, Jill. Who's going to win?
Moshe, I love an underdog, so I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Philly as well, Jill. As much respect as I have for the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, you've won 2 in a row. Give another team a shot.
All right, time for the speed read from Axios. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is planning to visit the Middle East in mid-February. It would be Rubio's first trip to the region since he assumed office, and it comes amid the uproar that President Trump's Gaza takeover plan has created in the Middle East. Some Israeli leaders are now praising the plan. Israel has even started to take steps to prepare for its potential implementation, meaning a possible large amount of Palestinians leaving the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and other countries in the region expressed strong opposition to it. 5 Arab foreign ministers and a senior Palestinian official sent a joint letter to Rubio demanding that Palestinians be involved in the reconstruction process. This is according to a copy of the letter obtained by Axios.
Yeah, it's led to a lot of reaction around the world here. Sort of Trump's goal. He was trying to jumpstart the talks. Marco Rubio was asked about this, and he said, do you guys have any better ideas? Because ultimately, that's what the president is trying to do here by saying if nobody has a good idea on how to rebuild the place over the next 15 years and what to do with the 2 million people who live there, how to house them, how to fund them, that ultimately the U.S. would go ahead and take over, so to speak, temporarily, Gaza and the reconstruction effort. And so Trump reiterated that on Truth Social after they tried to sort of water it down and walk it back the previous day. Thursday morning, woke up with the Truth Social post that the Palestinian that Gaza would be turned over to the U.S. by Israel once the war ends, and the great development teams from all over the world would build what would become one of the greatest and most spectacular developments of its kind on Earth. He also added that U.S. troops will not be needed. And U.S. money will not be needed, which has been part of the pushback he's getting specifically from Republicans on Capitol Hill. So Rubio is going to make his first visit out there. We obviously covered all the Tony Blinken visits, his predecessor at the State Department. We'll see how those meetings go. Rubio has had a very eventful first trip to Central America, where he struck some agreements with El Salvador, with Guatemala, with the Panamanians on a variety of issues. So now he heads to the big challenge one of the big challenges, the Middle East. He also has Ukraine and Russia on the agenda, all things China as well. But how the proposal from President Trump this week related to Gaza changes the dynamic there, impacts the ceasefire process, TBD right now.
Yeah, one thing to watch this weekend, Hamas is expected to release another 3 Israeli hostages, so we'll see how that goes. Also want to mention Jordan's foreign minister is expected to be in Washington today for meetings with Rubio and other Trump administration officials. And then King Abdullah will be meeting with President Trump at the White House on Tuesday. The foreign ministers of Egypt and Saudi Arabia also expected to visit Washington in the next couple of days.
Yeah, 2 countries that Trump says should take on Palestinian refugees. So we'll see how those conversations go. They've been pushing back.
From USA Today, the U.S. Army helicopter that collided with an American Airlines plane, killing 67 people last week, had turned off an advanced surveillance system that the federal government has hailed for making airspace safer. So this is according to Texas Senator Ted Cruz. He was among a group of lawmakers briefed on the collision by federal authorities. He said the Blackhawk helicopter had switched off this automatic dependent surveillance broadcast sometime prior to the January 29th crash. He told reporters this was a training mission, so there was no compelling national security reason for that system to be turned off. He also said the helicopter had a transponder so that it would appear on radar, but that this ADS-B system is significantly more accurate.
A reminder that the helicopter was on a routine training mission when it collided with the airliner. As reported yesterday, it appeared to be above its ceiling, above the elevation it was supposed to be at, 200 feet. It was upwards of 300, above 300 feet there, and that's why it ended up colliding with the plane. Trump addressed this a bit at an event yesterday, a prayer breakfast, where he blamed the collision on an obsolete computer system used by air traffic controllers. He says the U.S. has been spending billions of dollars to renovate an old, broken system instead of investing in a new one. He actually said that on his private helicopters and planes, he uses his own system that he says is from Europe and is better. He didn't go into detail on that one. Nonetheless, the FAA has been working since the mid-2000s, we're going 20 years now, to upgrade air traffic control systems to what's called its Next Gen program. Congress passed a law back in 2003 to prompt the upgrades, but it's just been hung up here. Sean Duffy, the new transportation secretary, said Elon Musk and Doge is going to help upgrade the system. That's received pushback from, among others, Hillary Clinton, who said, I don't know if I trust that, Elon Musk getting involved here, to which other people have done pushback saying, well, he's able to get rockets safely into space and back. Maybe we should trust him with upgrading the FAA system. So a lot of back and forth there, but certainly this has jump-started the conversation about how to get better technology to our air traffic controllers.
Another piece of news, the FAA said Thursday that it would slow the arrivals rate at Reagan National Airport outside of Washington as weather and recovery efforts were affecting flight paths into the airport. So arrivals would be reduced from 28 per hour to 26 per hour during the slowdown.
Yeah, there's already criticism that there's too many planes taking off and landing at the behest of airlines who've pushed the FAA to approve that. And one of the things that might come out of this, we've mentioned, is the FAA telling airlines and airports to slow their roll.
From CNBC, OpenAI said on Thursday that the company is considering building data center campuses in 16 states that have indicated real interest in the project. That project linked to President Trump's Stargate plans. OpenAI execs said that it sent out a request for proposals, or RFP, to states less than a week ago. They said on a call that a project of this size represents an opportunity to both reindustrialize parts of the country and also help revitalize where the American dream is going to go in this intelligence age. Shortly after his inauguration last month, President Trump introduced Stargate, which is a joint venture between OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank to bolster U.S. artificial intelligence infrastructure. Some of the initial partners will include Microsoft, NVIDIA, Oracle, as well as semiconductor company ARM. They say they'll invest about $100 billion to start and up to $500 billion over the next 4 years.
So OpenAI looking at Arizona, California, Florida, Utah, Texas, New York, Nevada, West Virginia, a number of states, I think 16 states that they're currently looking at. Construction of the data center down in Abilene, Texas is already currently underway. They will be announcing additional construction sites on a rolling basis, they say. They are, this AI future of ours is going to require a lot of power, a lot of data. And Jill, notably, it comes as there's increasing talk in Washington, concern about DeepSeek, the Chinese AI, sort of OpenAI copycat, though there are questions about where they got the technology. But it has been, until recently, the number one downloaded app in America. Their data centers, they admit, are in China. They're collecting all the data in China. And given the conversation that we've been having about TikTok, there are questions about DeepSeek. So that's something we're going to watch as well.
And finally, from the CBC, a literal heads up. An asteroid the size of a football field is hurtling towards our planet with a roughly 1.9% chance of impact in 2032.
So let's just repeat that. An under 2% chance of an impact just over 7 years from now.
But it's not like 107 years from now.
No.
Like we should all hopefully still be around.
It's around, it's like Christmas week 2032.
As one popular space TikToker pointed out, sports fans know that those 1%ers sink all the time. But even though it is rare for any asteroid impact risk to get above the 1% mark, scientists still say that they're not worried about it. One expert saying, we're not at a direct threat. We're not an immediate risk. This is not an alert. This is not a crisis situation. Which I feel like makes people more stressed, no?
Listen, the people who know say, but the people who know say they're not stressed is an important headline.
So this asteroid was first spotted last month by a telescope in Chile. It is known as 2024 YR4. It's estimated to be about 130 to 300 feet across. It's traveling at around 15 times the speed of a high velocity bullet. It is now moving away from the Earth, but will return in our direction in 2028. If it does impact Earth, again, a 98 to 99% chance that it will not. It's estimated to happen on December 22nd, 2032.
Merry Christmas 2032, everybody. Honestly, it'll be a very Merry Christmas as it whizzes by us. Now, you said it is going to return in our direction in 2028. Not to worry, it has a 0% chance of hitting us in 2028. Now, what 2028 will allow us to do is get a better glimpse of it and adjust our stats. And the probability keeps changing here. If you've seen stories, we mentioned 1.9%. It began at 1.6%. Thursday, they actually updated it to 2.3%, which is a 1 in 43 odds of hitting Earth. A reminder, 2.3% is still 97.7% that it will not hit Earth. But as it goes further and further away from Earth, it'll get a little more challenging. In April, they won't be able to detect much from it anymore because of the way that's going to be swinging away from us. And then we'll have a better shot in a couple of years of getting this shot. So it's somewhere around 2% right now. It is enough, though, for the International Asteroid Warning Network to issue its first ever potential asteroid impact notification. Its notification threshold, by the way, is 1%. If anything ever has a more than 1% chance of hitting Earth, that activates this. Scientists will soon start to meet to discuss Earth's response. If the probability remains above this, will they try to crash a spacecraft into it to deflect it? Remember, they had that successful test in the last couple of years. Where they were able to crash a device into an asteroid to try to push it off course a little bit. This is all taking us back to like the Armageddon movie right now, Jill.
Yeah, it's like a real life Armageddon. It's crazy.
Now, importantly, let's not use the word Armageddon besides the film because this asteroid is pretty small. It's a football field. It is not an Earth-ending, human life-ending asteroid. Remember, again, it's about 98% that it doesn't hit us. It's 2% that it does. Right now, they can track where it would hit. And right now, it would hit somewhere in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, northern South America, so sort of a route through Venezuela. Then that route through Atlantic Ocean takes you through Central Africa, then around the Arabian Sea, past the kind of the southern tip of India, into the sort of the area there of South Asia near Laos and Thailand. So that's the route around Earth that if it would hit along that line, according to the latest data from NASA. Now, the good thing about Earth is we're almost 80% water. There is a chance of a potential tsunami related to that hitting the ocean, depending on how much of it is left. So it's just something we're closely watching. I know it's a little nerve-wracking hitting this stuff. It's a 98% chance of a miss right now. It is more than 7 years from now. We have had a successful deflection that we test from a couple of years ago. And so there's a lot of time between now and then. And of course, Jill, Elon Musk is in the government now. So I feel like that's a good project for him, no?
He's got a lot on his plate, Moshe.
Let's just not do all the cuts they're doing across the government. Can we just not cut anyone from NASA or JPL right now? Like, I feel like let's leave all those people. In fact, let's start hiring some extra people there to track 2024 YR4. In terms of his history here, you don't actually have to go so long ago for a similar situation. In fact, you could go to 1908. There was a major asteroid impact in 1908, about the same size. It actually exploded in the sky over Siberia. Now, it did level hundreds of square mile of forest. It was felt hundreds of miles away. And very luckily, it hit an area of Siberia that was uninhabited at the time. So that's the hope here in the 2% scenario that this thing hits. But again, 7 years, 2%. We're going to get a better sense in 2028. So stay tuned, folks, but an early heads up.
It is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Time for what we are watching, reading, and eating.
Before we get started here, just a reminder, this segment sponsored as always by Amazon Audible. If you're not already a user of Amazon Audible, we here at Mo News have partnered with them. They have hundreds of thousands of audiobooks, specials, podcasts. It's one-stop shopping for all your audio listening. If there's ever a subject, I don't know, like anything we mentioned in today's podcast that you want a deeper dive on, you want to listen to a book about, that's what Amazon Audible is there for. And they have a special deal going on right now for Mo News listeners. Check it out over at mo.news/audible. Once you get started here with this free trial, you're probably going to want to stick with it. Again, Amazon Audible over at mo.news/audible. Check it out. All right, Jill. I think what we're watching this weekend is pretty obvious at this point.
Oh, the Super Bowl?
that game with that halftime show game and the commercials. There's that, but I also saw that the new Amy Schumer movie, Kinda Pregnant, on Netflix is also out. So if you're looking for something different.
Apparently it's hysterical.
All right. So there you go. Watch that before the game, or if the game is sort of lame.
Okay, so I'm going to be watching the Super Bowl, but specifically the fashion. The fashion, you might ask. Apparently, the NFL has hired its first ever fashion editor. His name is Kyle Smith. And according to the New York Times, he started this job last fall. His directive is to use fashion and style to reach new audiences through the league's media platforms. And on Sunday, he's going to be part of a team that's covering what the players and other notable attendees are wearing to the games. There's even a new red carpet segment that will air as part of Tubi's Super Bowl broadcast. Moshe, what are you reading?
There's a Wall Street Journal piece called "Don't Try to Rescue Your Kid from the Learning Pit." I have it linked. Fascinating in terms of parenting advice that, we all want to help our kids out, but sometimes we gotta let them learn some lessons. Jill, what are you reading?
So I'm reading All Fours by Miranda July. My sister-in-law is reading it, as are a bunch of her friends. She says it is a novel, but it also has a lot of honest talk about being in your mid-40s. Some of it a bit depressing. She said some of her friends love it, some hate it, some didn't even finish it because they hated it so much, which means I should probably read it. All right, Moshe, what are you eating?
Guacamole, chips, so much guac. Jill, the estimate is from Mexico that they have exported 250 million avocados just for Super Bowl weekend. Thank God the tariff is gone. By the way, we get about 90% of our avocados from Mexico. And yourself, Jill?
Chili cheese dip. My husband happens to make a great chili cheese dip, so hopefully he'll do that on Sunday. Moshe, I know we need to wrap, but a really funny bit from this comedian about avocados. He said one ripe avocado is perfect because you know how you never could find an avocado that's ripe. And then he's like, five ripe avocados, a crisis, because you have to figure out like what you're going to do with all of them.
Oh, I could figure it out.
And the only option, he says, guacamole.
Guacamole for the fam.
All right, everybody, that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Mo News Podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store.
Have a great one, everybody.